New Testament in the Bible is a collection of books by a number of authors that recount not only the life of Jesus in the first four Gospels, but also provide teaching, wisdom and insight into a multitude of areas that we can actively apply to our day-to-day lives. These are useful to everyone, be they new Christians or church leaders. And I think that one of the most amazing things about the Bible is that it is timeless, meaning that no matter when or where it is read, we as people will always be able to relate to it, and God will always speak something new and fresh into our lives. And while this is definitely the case, one of the overall key themes that I have identified within the New Testament is the abundance of God's desire for us to evangelize to those around us. Throughout the Gospels of the Bible, there are numerous instances where Jesus reached out to others through either teachings or miracles, which were either done freely or by somebody having to step out in faith. Regardless of the circumstances, Jesus did these in order not to benefit himself, but to benefit those around him, and to bridge the old covenant and new covenant between law and relationship with God. This theme is summed up in Matthew 28:18-20, which has Jesus giving the 11 disciples the Great Commission, telling them to go into all the nations, making disciples and baptizing them. While the commission of the disciples given by Jesus is an extremely major element of our Christian ministry and daily walk with God, it was not given lightly, knowing that there would be adversity and opposition to what Jesus charged us with. I believe that the reason as to why was such a strong emphasis on evangelism scattered throughout the Gospels and pastoral letters of the Bible was so that there were effective tools, parables and principles and strategies that we could use to reach out to and evangelize to those around us. It was through the love and relationships that Jesus actively sought after with those around him that was the greatest tools and example of evangelism. And because of this active seeking of evangelism with those around him, Jesus actually started to go against the grain of what had been considered normal when it came to seeking and desiring God's heart. It wasn't because there had become a downturn of any sort with the Jewish leaders or Pharisees, or that religion had become non-existent, but in fact, it was that there was too much of an overabundance of religion. During the time of the intertestamental period, up until the start of Jesus' ministry, the Pharisees and teachers followed the law to such an extent that there was no room for the relationship that God desired with them. Instead, John chapter 2, 12-17 shows how they had become so inward focused that they had totally missed the mark, to the point that they had turned somewhere that had been a holy place where people would come to worship God into a place that fulfilled their own desires instead of reaching out to others that were around them and in need. See, when Jesus was sent, God didn't do it so that only a certain number of people were saved, but he wanted us to reach out and to evangelize to those around us so that we would be able to have a relationship with him. This is why he had disciples, ordinary, everyday people from all sorts of walks of life that he trained and equipped to evangelize. When we hear about or something has happened in our lives that has blessed us, be it the start of a great friendship or blessing that's poured out into your life, I think it is normal and healthy for us to be excited and to share about it. However, when we hear about something that sounds like it is going to have a negative effect, such as a big bill that we're told and we accept that we will never be able to pay off, or that there are laws and legislation which have been brought in that rip us off from what our foundational leaders stood on, that we are not going to be as eager to share about it, if at all. In conclusion, the book of Acts, it recounts and depicts the early church and shows the growth that was happening as a result of evangelism to both Jew and Gentile, where there was unmatched growth as a result of the early church leaders